no cap on how greedy you can be. They're not happy just having a lavish lifestyle, right? That's not enough. And that to me is the problem, is that when you look at other countries, and this is something I've noticed in so many different places, and I talk about it all the time, is there's much more of a concern for the collective good in general. Most other countries, they think everyone should have healthcare. Right. Like most other countries recognize the importance of the collective and how everyone interacts. It's not every man for himself in the nature that we are here. And so people in places like, let's say, Canada, so my husband has colleagues in his field that are up there, and it's in medicine. And so we know what they make. We know what the differences are. And you know what? They're perfectly happy with having less in lieu of having a system that benefits the collective. And that is a really hard sell here. And that's what I feel like I'm constantly fighting against. It isn't that we couldn't have capitalism and have it work out where it's helping people. We can, but there's a lot of greedy pigs. And they are making it so that it's hard to have nice things.
Well, it's a lot of greedy pigs who are in control of the system in many ways. And so
correct.
In Canada, for example, the amount of very, very, very wealthy people is this compared to what it is here. We have this class of uber wealthy people that exists in probably no other country relative to our size. And so what happens is they exert an enormous influence on our body politic, because decisions like Citizens United empowers them to give unbelievable sums of money to influence the outcome of elections. Anyone that says that like negative ads don't work, they have data on it. There is a reason why people do it, because they work.
Oh, it works.
Right? It works.
Yeah.
But in the same token, no one wants to believe that they're influenced by a negative ad. But the bottom line is every single research study for the last 30 years has shown that it works. And so you have this huge pool of dark money that goes into influencing the outcome of elections and then also the outcome of policy decisions. And you have a cadre of people who are so wealthy in this country who can control so much of our body politic. That becomes a problem, and it erodes the foundations of our democracy.
Now they're actually controlling our bodies.
Well,
now it's not just our body politic, it's our literal bodies. I feel like I'm being violated.
Yeah, I don't know if these folks have ever taken an anatomy class or understand anything about
science.
I can't figure it out. I recently moved to Florida from New York, where before Roe was overturned, we had codified Roe. What's happening here? It's honestly, I think it's from folks who don't understand anatomy. I mean, it's shocking.
Well, we do. Well, Florida is 48th in education, so your hypothesis is actually well founded. It is very likely that these people have no concept of science and anatomy. That's very plausible.
I don't think they have a concept of science, anatomy, or actually history, for that matter. I find so much of what I see down here just ignorant and disturbing, coming from the governor. And the problem is people believe it, and it's up to people like yourselves and like us to have these conversations to remind people that it doesn't have to be this way. That it's determined. Like we can determine the outcome of. I refuse, like you said in the opening. I refuse to believe Florida is a red state. I wouldn't have moved here if I thought it was a red state.
It really isn't.
It's not.
It really isn't. I've been all around it, and it really isn't. It's purple. I'll give you that. But it's populist, and it is not a red cabal. That is what is holding our legislature hostage.
Right. Well, the legislature to me feels so out of step with the rest of the state.
Exactly.
Usually these things correct themselves even on their own. I wouldn't take a chance, but I have a hunch that what we saw in Jacksonville was sort of just the start of a rebalancing in the state. And I'm new to this. I've been coming here for 30 years, but part-time. But now that I'm full-time here, I've been locally in Palm Beach County where I live. The people that I've encountered have no relationship to what's happening in Tallahassee and think it's all bizarre.
Yeah. But you live in the Tri-County Blue Oasis. Okay.
Right.
So we live in our own little echo chamber, but I would say most people in the state don't pay attention at all.
Right.
At all. Okay. So the majority of people don't even know, like, don't pay attention. That's the truth. And within the people that do, you have most people are not pleased with what's going on, even whether they're red or blue.
Right. But let me say this. So I come from the Upper West Side of Manhattan, which is reputationally very, very blue. And so I ran Congressman Jerry Nather's political club for many years. I was an elected party official in New York. So on the Upper West Side, just by way of example, the voter registration imbalance was like 65, 35, 70, 30. But our candidates come election day in a general would win 80-20, 85-15, 90-10 even. So we would outperform the base. We would outperform the voter registration. So here, since I've been here, what I've noticed is Democrats have underperformed the voter reg. So outperforming the voter reg is really important, but that's about like organizing, activism, like getting people out to vote, which we did really well and continue to do really well on the Upper West Side, where I'm still involved and still helping. But here, that hasn't been the case. Like, it was an interesting statistic. If Charlie Crist could have won the election if Democrats just came, they just didn't vote.
Well, he's a horrible candidate.
Well, again, not like obvious.
No, but that's the problem. Like maybe, and I'm just saying, this is my sort of like theory, is that Democrats might vote and people might register more as Democrats if the Democrats were actually offering something.
Yeah.
That's just my theory.
Right. You can't just be the party of no, like you have to be for something.
Yeah, and Charlie Crist is a political chameleon. Sorry, but he is. You're not. I've lived here. I'm from here. I'm a townie. I am a second generation native to South Florida. So I've known him basically forever and a day, and he just goes where the wind blows. Neither here nor there.
In the state of New York,
that was the best we could put up against.
And it isn't. But that's our party has also been taken hostage. That's another story.
And as you've seen in the state of New York, there's a real and regardless of where people's politics fall, regardless of whether you're probably more center moderate, but even if you look at the way the left movement has changed in New York City, particularly as it pertains to AOC's victory over Crowley. That has inspired a lot of people to get involved in the local level politics that otherwise wouldn't have been there. New York is very unique in that regard. And, even holding somebody like Hochul's feet to the fire is a big deal. The idea that, we push constantly for universal healthcare, single payer healthcare. And the fact that in New York, there really is momentum to get the New York Health Act moving in Albany is such a far cry from where we are here in Florida. We really do not have a legislature that responds, but what we also have is a Democratic Party that basically is akin to just playing the Washington Generals to the Harlem Globetrotters.
It's not, they have no meat.
We had two particular state house candidates that were in Florida, one in Orlando, one in Miami, that absolutely should be up in Tallahassee right now.
We could have had two more.
But because the state party is essentially inept and does things almost like quizzically to the point where you're thinking, are they working with the GOP?
Well, and they also don't respect young people.
That's also the thing. You mentioned that you've been working with Nadler for many years. A lot of the politicians that are down here, like Jen ran against Wasserman Schultz for Congress, and a lot of the people that have been working with her for a long time, those are people that have been in politics 30, 40, even 50 years. And the fact that the new blood isn't being welcomed in, especially when it comes with a more populist left bend, that's not something that sits very well with the people that have been here for a long time. So changing that culture is a huge part of the process of getting things where they need to go. I guess you would agree with that.
And I mentioned this to Nikki Frieda, actually. One thing you could do tomorrow that would change the party in this state, you may not even be aware of this. In Florida, well, you probably know this. In Florida, Democratic clubs are not allowed to endorse in primaries. They can only endorse in the general after the primary has been decided. Why does that matter? Here's why it matters. In New York, for example, Democratic clubs endorse in the primary. Why is that important? because it means the clubs have hundreds of people who are active members because the clubs have power. They're not social educational like they are here in Florida. They actually have a say in shaping who becomes the Democratic nominee for House seats, for state Senate seats, congressional seats, etc. When you give people power, guess what? They show the fuck up.
Well, our party here does do primaries. What they do is they just put their thumb on the incumbent and they ignore everybody else.
What I'm saying,
so they do that. They don't have they're not interested in challenging incumbents.
Clubs like I have the Boca Raton Democrats here. They can't endorse. They said that we can't endorse it. I said, what do you mean you can't endorse?
They say that because if they were able to endorse, they'd have to have screenings and they wouldn't just be in bag with the incumbent. And then that would not be allowed in this state.
Term limits in Florida, like there are so many openings that don't exist in other states, like New York, for example, where the last 16 years in my neighborhood on the Upper West Side have the same 3 elected officials. But here, there actually is turnover. So when you have an open seat, the clubs can be enormously influential.
Oh, yeah.
However, they're not. They have no role. So what I'm saying is you could grow at the local grassroots level huge volumes of activists and supporters who get involved at the local level in politics if you gave them power to endorse. It's literally in the party rules. It goes back to like the Dixiecrat days. And in the state party rules, it actually fines clubs. I read this for myself. Clubs are fined if they make an endorsement in a primary. If you flip that, if you got rid of it and allowed clubs to make endorsements here in Florida, you would have like double or triple the amount of people who would register for the clubs because they want to say they'd have power. They want to have to say what's happening and who they endorse. It would make an enormous difference in the state, and you'd start electing younger candidates, more progressive candidates, more diverse candidates, because you're allowing the locals who are involved to have influence and say.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.